Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me today, it's Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat writer, Charlie O'Connor, and Broad Street Hockey's own Kelly Hinkle. What's going on today, fam?
It's nice outside.
It's
very nice.
It is.
You love to see it.
It's warm outside. It's the Flyers getting hot. Matvei Michkov getting hot. Got some playoff and Calder trophy fever.
It's staying lighter longer.
Yeah, that's always good. It's
Always
nice to
good
see
thing.
this, like, when this show ends at 5 and it's not dark, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
agreed.
pretty nice. All right, we have a lot to get to today. I want to look back at last night's game a little, look towards the trade deadline a little. But this morning, I went back and watched the entire Carnival broadcast that you two did a tremendous job on. I just want to ask you about a couple of the interviews, things that stood out to me, get a little follow-up there. The first one, very first guest, Rocky Thompson. We asked the questions, Charlie asked the questions that everyone wants the answers to. Yeah. About Michkov on the left, about the ineffectiveness of the power play overall. Charlie and Kelly, did you guys buy the answers about why Michkov's on the left, the moving parts kind of being the problem with the power play? Did any of that hit home with you?
I didn't buy the idea of the moving parts being the problem, because there is a little bit of we're all looking for the guy who did this kind of thing. You know, well, if you don't want the parts to be moving, you can just stick with something. You are the guy who,
and like if it worked, they would stick with it.
Designs the power play. The answer about Michkov on the left, I thought he made a couple good points. The best point he made was that he spent that Michkov has spent the majority of the season on the right, and that is fair. I do think that fans online are acting like this has been an entire year thing. This has been a thing recently that they have had him on the side that he is not necessarily as used to. He also made a fair point that, and I mean, I guess I can only take him at his word here, that Michkov himself had suggested, why don't I try the left? I think I could be good there. So this wasn't like he's being forced into doing something he doesn't want to do. My issue with it is more that listening to his answer, I can understand why Tortorella and the organization likes Thompson so much, because he is smart. And like, you can tell that like everything is thought out and that he has a reason for everything. And if you quiz him on, well, why did he do this thing? He can articulate exactly why he did it and the thought process behind it. But you can also see why he might just be overthinking things. To me, the thing with the Michkov power play situation is, even when the power play was struggling, I don't think it was struggling because Michkov was in the wrong spot. Yeah. To me, it's that's working. Have everything else move around to accommodate the one guy who has elite level skill on the power play. Not, well, it's not working. Let's try putting him somewhere else. And that might play into why Thompson hasn't been a good power play coach, is because he overthinks himself into problems that don't need to exist if he didn't overthink himself into the problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's at the end of the day, like, he did give very good answers to your questions.
He thinks it through, clearly.
But none of it's working.
Right.
So, like, you are obviously smart. You understand how all of this works, and you see it's not working, but you're not doing anything differently. Like, that's the thing where it's like, I don't know.
Like there's that meme where you have like the distribution chart where it's like the real dumb people say shoot more, and then everybody in the middle is like, you know, the people in like the mid-tier intelligence are like, no, actually you should do this, and you know, sometimes passing is good, and then the really smart people
like
just
the wizard
shoot
genius.
more.
Yeah.
And like I feel like that's kind of this where, you know, the people who are just like, no, just let Michkov do whatever the hell he wants. And then you have like Rocky in the middle, like, well, no, you can justify changing it. And then the real smart people are like, nah, just let Michkov do whatever he wants.
And it did, honestly, even on that left side last night. Down the power play doesn't score. They scored 6, didn't need to. But Michkov on that left side last night did start to look a little more comfortable, I thought, for the first time. He took like 3 shots on one shift, just kind of stepping off of that wall, like kind of the Giroux spot, maybe a little lower, and then just kind of ripping them, trying to go with that left shot on the left side there. But I don't know. The answers were fine. Like, yeah, you can see why. Like, yeah, I get what you're saying, bud. But also, like, just we had them set up so there was a one-timer option and it never worked. So we decided to go against it. Well, keep working on it.
Yeah,
like improve it.
Yeah,
the kid's 20. I don't know. I've seen him score on a couple of one-timers this year from that right side. I can both yes, your answers are the actual answers themselves, okay, but when you dig into them, it's not working either. Like that, whatever. It's just the power play's bad. I don't know what to tell you.
I do think.
All right.
I do think that online fans. And I get it because he's the savior and he's obviously very talented. I think online fans do cut Michkov a little bit too much slack. I think that there is a feeling that he cannot be criticized for anything and that everything he does is perfect and that if he struggles, it's obviously someone else's fault, not his. I do think they can go too far. But I think in this particular instance, the idea of, well, if he's really, really good in one spot and has been really, really good in one spot pretty much his entire hockey career, maybe just keep him there is completely the right way to think about it.
And I'm all for like some movement, some creativity. I
am too. Yeah,
I've talked the whole time, like since this summer, get his ass behind the net. Like, yes, there's the Michigan option, but also, he seems like a pretty damn good distributor. Yeah. That's a really good, the goalie can't see you and the shooter at the same time if you're behind the net. Seems like a good, it's just like, I don't know, stationary on his forehand. Like what are the options? A short side shot or a pass into the bumper. That's really it. And I don't know, it was fine. I'm glad we got the questions asked. And then the Jim Jackson interview, honestly, stood out to me maybe more than any of the others outside of Rocky. Because Charlie, we've been talking about like why fans don't want Elias Pettersson now. It's like, well, in order to get the guys that we think we're going to need, they might have to be distressed assets or something.
That's my point.
And JJ brought up Washington's strategy of getting a PLD. Yeah. And like that's the definition of a distressed asset there. A dude like basically on his last shot, pretty much. And then
even Jacob Chikrin, same thing.
Getting guys who maybe deserve a little more, or you think deserve a little more opportunity. Hey, if we go from 14 to 17 minutes with this guy, if we go from 11 to 14 minutes with this guy, can they like bump their production accordingly? And it has worked for Washington. And that just really got me thinking about your there's going to be some risks that they have to take and some moves that everyone's going to be like, yeah, that guy. It's like, well, how else did you think this was going to work?
Right.
And that got me honestly thinking about Kuzmenko. Now, not ideal, but it might not be ideal. Like, yeah, you can draft guys and you can offer sheet, but it might be someone a little older. It might be someone on their third stop. Do you think Andrei Kuzmenko at 29 can be one of those guys?
I think that, like, you bring him in to give him a look because there is a chance that he could be one of those guys. Like, the skill is obviously there. He just doesn't seem to put it together for long enough stretches.
It's odd that he gets it right away and then it dissipates.
I don't know if it's just like he does like a little FU bump to the former team after he gets traded, or he's doing a little bit of like a I'm so excited to be here bump and things or whatever. And then as things normalize, he just like doesn't care that much anymore and he just stops trying as hard or whatever. Because I don't think the skill disappears, right? Like that's not really a thing that happens. Obviously players go through hot and cold periods, but his is like a very definitive like up here and then like down. Yes. So I don't know if it's like an effort thing or an attitude thing or what the deal is, but like he is certainly, I mean, we've talked about this forever that like if the Flyers are going to find guys, it's probably going to have to be reclamation projects because we're not going to get, like, the Avs aren't going to trade us Nate McKinnon. You know what I mean?
Probably
like, you're going to
not.
have to find guys
Would
that
be
are
shocking.
a little bit broken in the hopes that you can fix them. And I think there's a solid chance that Kuzmenko, obviously not like a game-breaking chance, but there is a chance that Kuzmenko could turn into a valuable asset for the team if he can keep up the high level of play.
So, number one, I want to, because this was intriguing to me about Kuzmenko. I didn't know that much about him. I followed him from afar. I remember when he had the real good first season in Vancouver when he scored a ton of goals. But the reputation he had was that, oh, he's difficult. He's a difficult player. I don't know if this won't last, if this is something that he just does in the beginning of his time with the team, but he has been, since he's joined the team, he's been last off the ice every single practice. He has been staying late every single practice, doing a ton of extra work. Now, I don't know if this is him being a try-hard for a new coaching staff, but maybe this is his thing. So maybe work ethic was never the problem with him. That said, Bill, I don't share Kelly's enthusiasm for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's 29 years old. Like, that to me is the big one. He's 29. Even if you reclamation project the hell out of him, how many years are you actually going to get before he starts declining? Second, that big year that we're all pointing to, he had like a 27% shooting percentage. Like, is he actually a high skill player, or is he a perfectly fine offensively oriented player who had an extremely lucky rookie year
And
when
it happened to be that
when
first
no one
season.
knew how to defend him?
Yeah.
That's my skepticism.
That is a crucial point. To the age point, though. And, like, yes, at 30, we all, like, you're just physical prime, like you're exiting it. However, in terms of wear and tear, he's only been in the NHL a few years. He is a what I will call young 29. Like, he just turned.
Like me.
No, he turned 29
Also
in the
young
beginning
29.
of this month. So, like, he'll play most of next season at 29. You know, and also KHL, less physical, shorter season. Like, the most he's played in the year is like 70 games, like 50 some, like 58 like regular season games, and then 10 to 15 playoff. Like, he's never had 100 game like long ass season. Like, somebody on the Chicago Blackhawks dynasty at 29, it's like, oh, dude, they're like 40 in hockey years.
Well, yeah, it's like,
he's not that. Is all I'm saying.
It's like miles on a car. Like, he might be a 2015, but he's only got like 10,000 miles on him
Yeah.
because he hasn't been driven that much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just skeptical.
It's just a
I'm
thought.
skeptical, like, if a big reason why we're saying, you know, well, Scott Laughton doesn't fit the timeline. He's 30 years old. Like, he's basically the same age as Kuzmenko, who we're now convincing ourselves can be part of this. Look, if they sign him to a 1 year or 2 year extension, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. But I just don't see him. I don't like the comparison with him with Elias Pettersson.
Yeah.
Elias Pettersson is significantly younger and also significantly better, and plays a position that is the biggest position of need that they have in the organization.
It just got me thinking about that distressed asset idea. And, like, initially I'm like, they have to flip Kuzmenko. And I'm like, well, I kind of want to see it play out. Kind of want to see what happens. But we'll get into some trade deadline stuff in a minute. Dan Hilferty and Keith Jones, I thought they were good. I thought you guys did a great job, but nothing really stood out to me. Was anything in there worth discussing for either of you guys?
I love them. Was my takeaway.
They're very cool.
love the both of them. I think they're great, and I believe every single word that they say to me.
I thought it was interesting that Jonesy, because one question I really wanted to ask him was about the decision to trade away Farabee and Frost, and was there concern about what it would do to the room? And, you know, this is where, and I guess I'll shed some light on my thinking of that question. When you're coming up with questions, you want to ask questions that shed light on an answer that they're not even giving. So to me, it was like, I want to ask that question because that might shed light on how they might approach Scott Laughton. Exactly. That was the thought. Right? It was asking about Farabee and Frost, but the unspoken part of it was also asking about Laughton. And Jones basically said, "Now, we really didn't think about it that much. You know, we considered it. It was something we talked about briefly, but it wasn't a big deal to us because we feel like the room is strong enough." That was something I believe that was also in an Anthony DeMarco article about 3 weeks ago. It seems like this is the organizational mantra, is that the room now is strong enough to be able to handle removals of good guys, of the guys that everyone likes, the culture guys. And it just adds a little bit more fuel to that fire that just maybe in a week, Scott Laughton might not be a Philadelphia Flyer anymore.
And John Tortorella reiterated the same thing today when he talked to you guys, I guess, after practice today. Like, if the question was, it took some probing to get John Tortorella to actually address the topic. But once he finally did, he went, you can't just, they're good in the room, so we can't trade them. Like, there are going to be casualties as we try to improve this team. And I thought that kind of continued this line of thinking. And we'll get to Laughton in a little bit, but you tweeted the other day, like, I think there's a better chance now than there's ever been.
Well, I don't know if ever been, but definitely last year. Because I think the closest they ever got to trading Laughton was the 2021 season right before he signed the extension. They were very close to trading him.
It seemed like that was,
if they couldn't agree on a number, and they agreed on a number. But that was truly a coin flip 50-50 thing. I don't think he's at that level yet, but I do think he is significantly more likely to be traded this time than last time, because one thing that we learned after the deadline, and Laughton opened up about this, I honestly forget if it was on the record or off the record, but I really don't think he'll mind if it was off the record, if it's revealed now. Like, Laughton was more or less told a couple weeks before the deadline by Danny, like, hey, you're going to be hearing a lot of rumors. Your name's going to be thrown out there because you know how the media works. Unless we get completely bowled over, we are not trading you. We have decided that you deserve to be part of this for the rest of the year. Maybe you get moved in the summer. Maybe you get moved in the future, but you are going to get to see this through unless someone absolutely blows us away. So he was able to kind of keep his head held high for 2 weeks, having that in his back pocket.
Yeah.
I have got no indication that he has anything in his back pocket this time. And it lines up with everything I've heard from league sources. It lines up with the rumors we've seen in the public sphere. It just feels like the Flyers, it's not even just that they're open to it. It seems like they are actively trying to drum up a market for Laughton, which is new.
It is. All right, before we go any further, I got to tell you about a couple of our sponsors, starting with Ace Hardware Home Services. Do you have a leaky pipe? Well, at Ace Hardware Home Services, they're around the block with everything you need to fix it, including the person to do the fixing. Same goes for the air conditioning issues. They have a person for that. And that faucet that you said you'd get to last fall, it's been 18 months. It's time to call someone. And the people you call, it's Ace Hardware Home Services. That's right, because now they're not just the helpful hardware folks, they're also the helpful home service and repair folks. From plumbing to heating and cooling, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services, they're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love from the store, now to your front door. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project today. And while we're here, why don't I tell you about Glatt Hair Restoration. That's right. Have you noticed your hair thinning or falling out? Have you considered hair replacement or hair loss prevention procedures? Looking for a trusted expert to answer all your hair-related questions? Well, Glatt Hair by Morgenstern Medical can help. Their board-certified experts have performed thousands of hair and plastic surgery procedures, and each patient receives a complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of action. Glatt Hair by Morgenstern Medical utilizes leading-edge treatments for prevention and restoration, such as laser light therapy, non-invasive TED treatments, vitamin supplementation, medications, and PRP and stem cell restoration treatments. Caring patient advocates work with you from the first phone call to the last follow-up visit. They understand that this decision can be an emotional and challenging one, and they're here to help make your experience simple and stress-free. Glatt Hair isn't just about restoration, it's about innovation. Their breakthrough treatments really do dramatically change lives. Change your hair, change your life. Bald is now optional. Regain your confidence with Glatt Hair by Morgenstern Medical. Learn more at glatthairmctr.com. That's glatthairmctr.com. All right, now we got to get to last night's win and the, I guess, varied reactions to the way the Flyers have now won 3 in a row. If you go back to before the break, you take a look at the standings right now, and the Flyers, I mean, they're still near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. They are percentage points, I guess, ahead of the Islanders. Somehow, how are they? Oh, because they have more total points. I was going to say they have fewer regulation. Whatever. They're right there near the bottom, but they're not, second to last anymore in the East. they're kind of in this thing. They're right at hockey 500. Montreal just ahead of them, and then there's a pretty good jump for those few teams that are maybe actually in the playoff race, at least by points percentage. How are we all feeling about this team potentially like finishing strong and once again ruining a possible top 5 pick?
Oh, that ruining. I mean, once again, I think you have to weigh the good of having the players that are going to be on this team for a while playing really well against the idea of getting a better lottery ticket. I guess, there's valid arguments on both sides of that, I guess. But for me, like, we were talking about Tyson Foerster last night, doing more of what he did last night. If we see Tyson Foerster shooting more and scoring more on a consistent basis, like, that's pretty important for this team moving forward. So, like, it's hard for me to see them finishing strong as a bad thing.
I certainly could see it as a bad thing. That gives them a less of a chance to get a guy with plausible 1C potential in the draft. If they pick 12th, it's going to be harder than if they pick 6th or 7th, to be sure. I'm assuming that either way, they're not going to win the lottery. But yeah, right, you get better odds the further down you are in the standings. So if you're 6th, you have a better chance than if you're 9th. So there's that too. That said, I'm watching this team, honestly. Look, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs because
that would be surprising.
I just think that there are too many teams in the mix. They don't have the superstars that allow them to go on 10-game winning streaks. They've been inconsistent this season, all season, really. But I watch the way this team's playing, and I think they're going to finish pretty strong. And I think it's going to tick off a lot of people. And maybe it's not the best thing for them long term, but quite frankly, the players don't care. That is not the players' problem. And look, the biggest thing that was wrong with this team all year was goaltending.
Yep.
Sam Harris is playing well. Like, I've been screaming from the rooftops since December that, like, you think you're mad about one thing. No, you're just mad about the goaltending. It's the worst goaltending in the league. Otherwise, this isn't a great team, but it's a perfectly good team. Now they're getting good goaltending, and now they're playing like a good team. Also, they have a revitalized Matvei Michkov who isn't exhausted anymore. Just those two things are enough that has me thinking that as long as both those two things hold, they're going to win more games and they're going to lose the rest of the way. Is it going to hurt their draft position? Yeah, probably. But again, that ain't the player's problem.
No. And that's kind of where I'm coming. Like, I would prefer this team lose. That said, like, I'd like them to lose like 6-5 every night, and it is just the goaltending's problem. Now, that would be a big hole you have to fill, but I think they have to fill it anyway. When I'm watching this, like, if this was, TK's still on a 100-point pace, he's going to score 45, and Sanheim's playing 28 minutes a night, and he's just dominant out there, that would be bad. Like, if that was the catalyst for this thing, getting to, like a 530 winning percentage or whatever the hell they're going to end up with and draft 12th. But when it's Michkov, when it's Foerster and Tippett and Cates and Brink and Drysdale, it's hard to get upset when those are the guys who need to be good. Like, we need them to be good. And if they're the catalysts, like, you're watching Pittsburgh last night. Tomasino is the only player they have on that roster under 25 years of age. If they were to finish strong, like, you'd be pulling your hair. Like, what are we doing? This is ridiculous. But we have a bunch of those guys that, like, right around that 25 and younger age, and like, they're emerging. Now, it's been a couple of games. We need to see them go like these next 20 of actual strong play before we get nuts about this.
Like, we should probably pump the brakes because it was one game against the Oilers, which I don't know
who haven't been playing well.
What was going on with them?
And Pittsburgh, who might be the worst.
Pittsburgh, who are a disaster. Like, let's see what they look like against Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Before we start acting like they're just going to win out the season.
I don't think they're going to win out. I just think that they're going to win. I'm not expecting them to finish out this season
in the bottom 5.
I am not. Look, anything can happen. Maybe guys get hurt. Maybe they trade away Scott Laughton and the room falls apart. I don't know. But I look at the quality of the team. I look at the fact that they are still one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the NHL in terms of 5-on-5 expected goals percentage. I look at the fact that Sam Ersson has a .920 plus save percentage since the end of December. I look at the fact that Matvei Michkov looks like the Matvei Michkov from November and December again. I look at the fact that Sean Couturier looks solid again. He looks like he's not going to fall off a cliff like he did at the end of last season. It looks like he's going to finish relatively strong. I don't see a path for this team to lose. What do they have, 23 games? I don't see a path for them to lose 15 out of their final 23. I just don't.
Okay, but like also, so what is the front office supposed to do? Like, are they supposed to go out at the deadline and trade all of the good young players so that we can tank and get a good draft pick? That's what I mean.
No,
like,
it's just the reality of the situation.
It seems like people think that like tanking means you're just like terrible, really good. Like out of nowhere, we're kind of like doing this. And that, I don't know why that's seen as like a bad thing.
Well, it's going to seem like a bad thing until they get the one or two more pieces they need. And if you're not drafting high, it's much harder to get those one or two pieces that they need. Not impossible, just harder.
And by one or two pieces, we mean like star level pieces.
Yeah, they need a 1C.
Yeah.
If the Flyers magically tomorrow got a 1C, I think aside from the people who are just miserable for the sake of being miserable, which there are some of those people who will always be miserable until the day they win a Stanley Cup. And even that day, they'll be miserable 3 days later. Aside from those people, I think the vast majority of the fan base would be like, yeah, okay, this could work now. That's the key thing. Like the defense, yeah, they could use another really good defenseman, but I think you can look at the defense core they're building and say, yeah, there's a path for that being enough.
I think it's worth going with for now and assessing.
There's a path to that being enough to be a cup contender, but the 1C hole is so glaring. And as long as that hole not only is there, but there isn't a clear pathway to filling it aside from, well, just trust Danny, people are going to continue to be very, very skeptical. And they're going to continue to be mad when the Flyers don't draft in a position where they're likely to get a guy that could be a plausible solution to filling that hole.
And listen, like that is the point of this whole thing. They keep telling us they need that guy. And without putting yourself purposefully in position to get him, like it's understandable that might upset some people who think, like, if it's not about winning the Stanley Cup, what's it about? And you can't do it without that guy. Now, maybe Matvei Michkov is so good, it's like, yeah, we can get by with that, 3-2C thing, where it's Noah Cates and Jet Luchenko and Sean Couturier, and our wings are just so good, it doesn't matter. But I don't really see that being a viable option at this point. Maybe Tyson Foerster and Bobby Brink become something else. But right now, they need that guy. And I understand, like, when we criticize people for being upset about it, like, I get it. I get why they want that guy. I don't criticize
people for being upset about it. I criticize people for being upset all the freaking time because that's just exhausting for me to deal with on a daily basis. But I get why people are skeptical.
That was the point of one of my tweets today, like, especially because we're beating Pittsburgh and it's like we're all afraid Pittsburgh's going to win the lottery. The league is going to fix the lottery for Pittsburgh, whether we beat them or not.
I think, honestly, that's part of my frustration.
That happens, then yes.
Part of my frustration is that people honestly believe that Pittsburgh is going to get cheated into a number one pick. They're not. That's not how this works, Bill.
Why not?
Why does everyone believe in conspiracy theories? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
It makes so much sense.
I mean, like, why were the standings... Why would the lottery odds...
The Penguins had the best odds to get Crosby the year they got Crosby.
Why were the lottery odds not changed after a season in which there were no games?
Boom.
What?
Exactly.
Crosby's draft was a year in which there were no games.
Because they were the worst team the year before.
But they already got that pick. They already had that lottery.
So what should they have done, Bill?
Everyone has even odds.
That would have been insane.
Why?
Because then the best team in the league would have gotten Sidney Crosby.
So?
Not necessarily.
Everyone had to buy everyone out everywhere. The cap was like $30 million.
And I don't think
the best team in the league wasn't the best team in the league when they came back.
And I don't think that was done because it's like, well, we gotta get Sidney Crosby to Pittsburgh.
No,
I don't. I do not think it was done for that reason, Bill. And I do not think, and I don't think that in 4 years they're gonna be like, well, we need Pittsburgh to stay alive, so cheat the lottery that has a friggin' like big three consulting firm making sure it's not a cheat to make sure that Mario Lemieux and Fenway Sports Group is happy. It's insane. I hate the obsession with conspiracy theories, not just in the fan base, but in the world.
I just don't think it's that big of a conspiracy.
I do.
Like, these things happen. Like, how the Knicks got Patrick Ewing. It was a clear cheating situation. Like, it happened. They froze the card that they took. Like, it happened.
Because if you don't believe in the fairness of the lottery, then stop watching hockey. Because you're then all that's going to happen is then the Flyers are never going to be allowed to win because the NHL hates the Flyers and it's all BS. Like, no.
I think
Come back to reality.
I think they capitalize on certain situations. I think usually it's on the up and up. And then when they see a situation they can capitalize on, they do.
It drives me nuts. There were like 30 people in my mentions yesterday being like, well, they're just going to cheat and let the Penguins win the lottery. No, that's not how this shit works.
My thing is they're going to do it either way. So beating them is fun. Like, that's the thing. Why not beat them? Because whether they finish 9th or 2nd, they're going to win the lottery. Like, it's predetermined. It's all pro wrestling. The world's pro wrestling, man.
This is nonsense because everyone knows if they fix it for anyone, it's Chicago.
They already did that, though.
I don't mind people joking about this stuff. It's the fact that, like, people then they joke enough about it to the point where then they start believing it, like you.
Listen, sometimes things aren't on the up and up. It has happened. Like, there's corruption throughout the world. It's not as if everything is, oh yeah, man, this is just fair and balanced. Like, that's just not the world. Especially not the business world. All right, speaking of the lottery, it's time for our daily Tankathon.
What's the point? What's the point of doing a Tankathon when they're just going to cheat anyway?
McKenna's not in this one. It's really more about next year than this year, I think. I think it's more about next year's draft than this year's.
Okay, so it's only certain times that they cheat.
When they can get a generational superstar. Okay. That's how it keeps happening. So the Flyers are in I had this earlier. What are they, in 8th? I can't. It's the monitor's really far away in the studio, but we've been doing this every single day. The Flyers odds from 8th from the bottom. You know, they were 6th. Now they're down to 8. They're up from 9. Let's get to it. Brenna, spin that wheel. All right. Stayed the same. There we go.
Seattle, Anaheim.
Maintaining 8, so they're well within the top 10. I can live with that for now. Hopefully the goaltending falls apart. All right.
Could do.
It could. I'm going to get to Matvei Michkov now because, man, it's so nice to see what's happening. Like, we were pretty sure we knew what was going on, and now it's, yeah, man, dude needed a rest. And he has just been phenomenal since the break and really leading into it. He now has 7 points, all at even strength in his last 4 games. He had 7 points in his previous 26, and like 5 of them were in a 6-game stretch. He was really, really struggling. He had slumps of 7, 5, and 7 games with no points during that little intermission he took during the year where it was like, we're just trying to get him to the break. And lo and behold, here we are coming out of the break. He looks phenomenal again. So
led the forwards in ice time last night.
Crazy.
It's almost like Torts gives him ice time when he was looking like he deserves the ice time.
I'm looking at the TOI last night and I was like, this game's well in hand. Can we save him a little? But
it just can never make you happy.
No, absolutely not. So we take a look now at the rookie scoring race. And he is right there. He is 1 point behind Macklin Celebrini, 2 points behind Lane Hudson for the lead amongst all rookies. Doesn't look like my guy, Logan Stankoven's going to be able to catch up. So, well, you know.
4 goals minus. Lane Hudson is such a fraud. He's my least favorite player, I've decided, for the rest of my life. Minus 17.
Minus 17. Oh, he's such a good defenseman. Anyway, it's like, Michkov, all he's doing is feeding off the power play. Tell me more about that, Lane Hudson. Yes, anyway, you see this, and we take a look at the Calder odds via Bet365. Macklin Celebrini, almost a prohibitive favorite, minus 350. You have Lane Hudson at plus 300. Dustin Wolf, 12-1. Matvei Michkov, 33-1. Stankoven's in there at 250, and then a whole bunch of other guys at 300.
Simplikov even has some odds.
Yeah, Simplikov's in there. Cutter Gauthier is in there.
Still on the board.
It's all 300 to 1. Like, they're all 300. Stankoven's 250. It's really the big 3, and then Michkov holding on before you get to the rest of the guys. It just feels like he can make a run at this thing, but that's statistical. do you think it's kind of already decided? Like the Hart Trophy was basically decided in like November last year. Like, yeah, if McKinnon's in this thing, it's his year. We've decided. Kind of felt like as soon as Celebrini turned it on, and listen, Celebrini's been awesome. It's not as if this is a big conspiracy, Charlie. It's just like, as long as the play is close to the narrative, because this is a human voter situation, it's like, yeah, this is Celebrini's thing. Do you think Cutter can at least become a finalist?
Cutter?
Wow.
Cutter?
Michkov can at least become a finalist in this thing. No, if Cutter becomes a finalist, my God. I mean,
Things
at
have gone
300 to
wrong.
1, that cash out will be pretty nice, even though he has no chance of winning. But no, can Michkov at least, like, do you think, become one of the final 3 over Dustin Wolf or Lane Hudson?
Yeah. I think he's going to finish out the year very strong. Now, it'll be interesting to see how he does in March because the schedule gets very, very busy
tight again, yeah.
March is a demanding slate and there's travel. So I don't know if he's going to be able to hold this level of play through the entirety of the rest of the season. But I think for the next couple weeks, I'm fully expecting him to continue to rack up the points. Is that enough to get him in the top 3? Yeah, it could be. If he, what does he have? 7 points or 5 points in his last 2? He's a +7. He's rolling. And it seems like he's developing chemistry with his line mates. So yeah, I think he could. I don't think he's going to win it. And in part, that's because, yes, I think the narrative is now that Celebrini, and it's not just that, like, well, we decided it's Celebrini. It's that,
no, look at him. He's awesome.
He's awesome. He's a center. Michkov is a wing.
Yeah.
He's getting more minutes than Michkov. I think the Flyers, and I put this on Twitter, I think the Flyers, and it's a bummer. I don't think it's going to kill Michkov or even hurt him at all long term, but it's a bummer in the short term. The fact that Tortorella has been so open in the media about Michkov's current flaws, it allows the media overall, the media who doesn't watch Michkov on a daily or nightly basis, to be like, yeah, he's not on Celebrini's level because you don't hear Celebrini's coach complaining about him. I guarantee you Macklin Celebrini has flaws. I guarantee you if John Tortorella was coaching Macklin Celebrini, he'd be talking about those flaws constantly because that's just John Tortorella. He likes to complain about his young players and about the things they need to get better because he thinks that will make them better over the long term. But I think that because Tortorella has poisoned the well a little bit about all of the flaws that Michkov supposedly had and how much work he still has to do, and has allowed people to think all the time about all of the things he needs to work on, whereas all the talk about Celebrini, especially Celebrini, it's universally positive. I think that's going to impact the voters. I do.
Okay. You mentioned the chemistry with his line mates. Now, ultimately, the hope would be Matvei Michkov is on a super line with a center who's just as good as him, and like maybe not a left winger who's, superstar, but a guy who can pump home goals, do exactly what you need him to do, playing a role on that line. That said, looking at the current makeup of the team, there is something to be said for the distribution of talent. It doesn't appear, at least as of now, Konechny and Michkov are going to be playing much together. We look at the Noah Cates line, and I want to talk about them in a bit. That's kind of set right now. Is there an argument for you load up like a Konechny line with that 1C and whatever, and Michkov is kind of the guy on his line the way it is right now with Tippett and Coots? Like, probably not ideal, but he's got 5 points in the last 2 games. It's not as if it's not working. I don't know. I feel like there might be a little bit of an argument for him being the driving force of his line and loading up elsewhere because we think he's a star level player.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that line, I think it's hard to argue that Michkov is not the driver of it.
And it's working, at least for right now.
Yeah, so you're not wrong.
I mean, I don't think Michkov is like the entire reason why the line is working, if that's what you're saying.
No, I just think his offensive skill is why they're producing right now, mixed with you don't have star level players next to him. This is not a 1C all-star left wing situation. It's not, Nathan McKinnon plus him and TK. It's him with role-ish players.
You think Owen Tippett's a role-ish player?
I don't think he's a top-line player.
Okay.
But, as a second line and then a center who is absolutely at this point a role player. Like, it's working very much.
Couturier is absolutely a role player at this stage of his career. Tippett, I think, over the last 2 games is playing like a top line player. So I think that's where I differ. Like, no, I don't think Michkov is driving the line in terms of like he is head and shoulders above everyone else, because I'm watching Owen Tippett and he's doing really great things over the last 2 games. Now, do I expect he's going to keep doing really great things for the next 23 games? Probably not, because he's inconsistent. That's his track record. Right now, though, I think Tippett is just as important to the success of... Tippett has been just as important over the last 2 games to the success of that line as Michkov. That's where I'm coming from.
I would agree with that. And the point I'm making here is that for this season, Matvei Michkov is outscoring Owen Tippett by like 8 points. He is outproducing him. They have the same number of goals. Matvei Michkov is just 20. Owen Tippett has already signed his, like, you know, prime length extension. It seems as if like the chemistry is working such that it is elevating Owen Tippett. And yeah, like that play he made in the neutral zone, the goal he didn't get a point on.
Yeah,
it's like he made the play that made the whole thing happen. It's not as if he's a passenger on this line. I'm just wondering, like, when you're talking about team building, does it almost make more sense to leave Michkov with secondary guys and load up a top line outside of him, and then you have 2 top lines? That's all.
Well, in terms of team building, maybe, but like I feel like it's more of a long-term question.
Yeah, it's a long-term
because
question.
You're saying, like, is it better to have Michkov with complementary guys and then have another top line? They don't really have a top line. They have Travis Konechny. He's the only top line guy they have.
Yes.
Now, if you're in a world where they go
line
out and they trade for Elias Pettersson, like, is the question like, well, would you be cool if it's like, you know, random left wing, Elias Pettersson, Travis Konechny, and then Tippett, Couturier, Michkov? Sure. I don't think they have to force Konechny and Michkov together just because those are their 2 most talented offensive players. Honestly, when they've tried to do it this year, it's been a mixed bag, in part because they're both more comfortable on the right side.
Yeah.
That might just be the reality of the situation. But it's a question that really is almost like, why bother talking about it until they have a first line?
I'm just looking at the way things are working right now, and it was going to lead me to this Foerster, Cates, Brink thing.
Okay.
But just looking at the situation, like, you know, this is working. And I know it's like, oh, man, imagine Michkov when we get a center who's as good as him. Like, would it almost make sense? Yeah, like, you'd put those 2 on a power play together because you're not stupid. But, like, I wonder if he could be like that dude on a line that isn't like super line. Like the way Nathan MacKinnon, like, yeah, you put Mikko Rantanen out there because Rantanen, I don't know, can he really drive his own line? But when he's with MacKinnon, it's great. Like, it looks as if Michkov can do that part, and then you have, say, that 1C who's just as good as him. You separate him. That's a real top 6. That's all.
Well, sure.
Just a thought I had watching last night.
The ideal is that he's really, really good and he can carry line. I just don't think I don't think he's at the point at age 20.
No one
Now,
is.
if he hits his ceiling, he's going to be able to do that. I think I just struggle with the line thing.
I know. You hate talking about lines.
Because they never stay together, ever. I think that's my issue, where it's like, well, should they put him with a 1C or a 2C? Like, he's going to play with everybody.
I still live in a Hextall world where the roster is built by pairs, and then we figure it out. Now, say you never figure it out, and you just give him Michael Raffle, well, that's how you get fired. But
fair.
I'm just trying to, I don't know, that's still how I look at things. And while we're talking about this Calder Trophy race, the odds, maybe Lane Hudson v. Matvei Michkov, I got to tell you, you got to come to Montreal with us, damn it. Come on out. This is going to be a hell of a time. Go to allphly.com right now. Go to allphly.com, click that events tab, and book your trip to Montreal. This is going to be a ton of fun. We're going out with Philly Sports Trips. They put on a hell of an event. It's going to be all sorts of activities, so many activities for us. Pre-game party, a meet and greet with Brian Prop. Going to be all sorts of great times. Kelly's been telling us how much she loves Montreal. Charlie, always trying to get on the Montreal trip. Well, guess what? We're all going. I've never been. Going to be a ton of fun. Go to allphly.com right now, events tab, and bookmark it, because we always have cool stuff going on. All right. Now let's get to this, and then I'll do the reads. Foerster, Cates, Brink, just this first question. do you think they can eventually become consistent enough on offense that they can be a top 6 line?
I don't know. In my mind, I think they're like a textbook picture perfect third line.
I'm kind of with Kelly.
Yeah. Like on a good team, that's a perfect third line. If they're our second line, not great.
I think they could be a second line. The one guy out of that trio that I look at and I say he has the potential, like, I will be disappointed if he's not a clear-cut top sixer is Foerster.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if you're spreading out your lines, like, you could have Tyson Foerster getting third-line minutes on that line, which is used as a matchup secondary scoring line, and then getting power play one time on a power play that's actually functional and still scoring 65, 70 points a year. That's doable. I mean, it's basically what they did with Phil Kessel in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, and that's, again, like the distribution of talent. Like, I think it does make sense, but just looking at what they do as a line, like, work really well in these matchups against top lines. They rarely just flat out lose a shift. They forecheck real well. They stay on offense. Can you deploy a unit like that doesn't score consistently in your top 6? Like, do you have to then have like a super line in front of them? I don't know.
It just depends. It depends on the way you construct your team. Like, could you do that if you were the Barry Trotz Islanders? Yeah, you certainly could. Okay. Now, if you want to be an above average offensive team, probably not. But if you want to be a team that wins all your games 3-2 and 2-1, sure, you could do that.
That really seems to enthuse. I was going to say, Kelly seems enthusiastic about that possibility.
Kelly doesn't love that idea.
Guess what? John Tortorella is building a team, Hinkle. We'll be lucky to score 3 a game. All right. Before we go any further, I got to tell you about our friends at Golden Nugget Jewelers. For the past 30 years, Golden Nugget Jewelers has operated out of the very same location in the heart of Philadelphia. Customers from across PA, Jersey, even Baltimore, NYC, they have all come to Golden Nugget Jewelers to find the perfect engagement ring or wedding band. And their staff is highly trained and dedicated to provide a personalized shopping experience. And listen, I've been on the ring hunt. Yeah, watching the birds on the ring hunt, that was a ton of fun. Doing it yourself, it is stressful. You have no idea what you're doing. That's why you deserve an expert and the best price. Golden Nugget Jewelers, where Philly gets engaged. Visit goldennuggetjewelry.com today to learn more. And while we're here, got to tell you about our presenting sponsors at Bet365. I just showed you the Calder odds. If you want to get in on them, maybe you're thinking, yeah, man, 33-1 for Matvei Michkov to win the Calder. That seems like something I want to get in on. Well, do it right now at Bet365. I've been placing all my bets this season at Bet365. They're my #1 sports book of choice. I think they'll be yours too. And right now we have breaking news from Bet365. New customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5, win or lose. Sign up, use the code PHLY365, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, total, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, I want to get back to the Foerster Cates Brink line, and specifically the 2 wingers, because I think we kind of know what Cates is. The offense has come and gone this season, but he has played consistently, and I think that's ultimately what he's going to be.
He's a good player.
Yeah, sometimes he's going to score, sometimes he won't, and he can drive a line. It's going well.
Can be on my team any day.
Absolutely. It's a lot like what I used to say about Scott Laughton back in the day. Like, not sure exactly what he is, but I know he can play for me. I think I know what Cates is now, and it's valuable. It's definitely valuable. I don't know if you can play him in your top 6 consistently and, like, win a cup.
Yeah.
But he's a really freaking good player. But I'm thinking about Tyson Foerster right now. Talked about this last night with Kelly, Charlie.
Okay.
Coming into the year, one of the things I wanted out of Tyson Foerster was an Owen Tippett-like willingness to shoot the puck. He is the trigger man on this line. He is one of the better shots on the team. Now, I think he needs to develop it more. I think he needs to have a quicker and more decisive release. But when he gets that thing off, it can blow by goalies. Like, we've seen it sneak up on some goalies this year. 32 games, though, this season. That's like half the year. 0 or 1 shots on goal. And these are not games in which he had like his ice time cut. This is like 15, 16 minutes minimum in most of these.
Sure.
And he's not getting the shot off. He has 89 shots on goal on 179 attempts. For comparison's sake, Owen Tippett has 317 attempts. Michkov has 229. Konechny has 277. Is it as simple as just give me more? Like from Tyson Foerster, like do that thing way more and you'll be more successful. Is it as simple as that?
Bill, it's a really good question because I guess I'll throw it back to you. When you watch Tyson Foerster, do you see a player who is passing up a lot of shots?
I think he's taking sometimes a second too long to shoot.
Okay.
Or taking a second. Not like a second is forever, like a quarter of a second.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden it's blocked, or before he even, like, it's an attempt, it's tipped, something like that. And we never get it off. And I just see it and go, yeah, this is a skill, like creating a lane for yourself and being able to get your shot through. That's absolutely a skill and he needs to work on it. But if he just like tried to pump him through a little more often.
Yeah, less thinking.
We always reference Moneyball, like when they're talking with Scott Hatteberg. He's like, I could even take some more strikes and I'd get like on base more still. Like if you just, even if you had more misses, even if you had a few more blocked, if you could get a few more through, you'd score 5-10 more goals. So that's what I'm looking at.
So you think, because I guess where I'm coming from is that could he shoot a little bit more when he has the opportunity, when he has the puck? Probably, because I guess everybody can. You know, every player can shoot the minute the puck touches their stick, and they would have more shots. I look at a guy who the reason why he doesn't shoot as much as we feel like he should is because he doesn't get the puck enough to do it. Like the reason why Owen Tippett takes as many shots as he does, I think, is because he has the ability to create space for himself. He's a great skater.
Yeah.
He can skate the puck into a spot and shoot it because he's bigger and faster. Foerster isn't that quick. I just wonder if his problem is less a lack of willingness to shoot and more that he just doesn't have the physical ability, at least yet, to put himself in positions to shoot. That's my bigger concern, is he ever going to be a volume shooter because he's never going to be getting to the spots quick enough to get the chance to shoot a lot.
And like that makes a ton of sense, because honestly, my thesis here is that this, especially for the last like 3 months, this has been the most consistent line. This line spends more time in the offensive zone than like the rest of the lines combined, it seems, over the last 3 months. And he doesn't have nearly as many shot attempts as like Konechny, who doesn't shoot anymore, Matvei Michkov, who went months without scoring. Like somehow Tyson Foerster is at 17 goals, and it feels like he should have 24 at this point, just because that's the only line that's on offense consistently. And maybe that is part of it. Like, yeah, Owen Tippett can skate off the boards, find the puck, shoot it. Tyson Foerster, he's going to have a guy in front of him. Like that, I guess that maybe is the reality of the situation, especially right now. I do think his skating has improved.
It has improved. He's gotten quicker, but he's still
not. And he's not Owen Tippett.
Yeah, I would say he's not an awful skater, but he's still a below average NHL skater in terms of raw speed. And I think that's always going to hurt him. Now, I think for me, he probably just needs to figure out what he is offensively. Because if he's going to be a volume shooter, he's going to have to play off of someone who feeds him the puck all the time. Or he might be able to change his game a little bit, maybe not change it, but tweak it, where he just owns the net front. You know, you don't have to shoot as much if all of your chances are coming in that crease and just in front of the crease and low side. Like that's what Brady Tkachuk does. Brady Tkachuk is not that great of a skater. No. He is okay, but he is not quick. If you look at his heat maps, all of his shots come within 6 feet of the net. That's where he shoots. He owns that area. Maybe Tyson Foerster has to, channel a little bit more Brady Tkachuk and take more of his shots in the dirty areas, and then maybe he can hold a 15% shooting percentage so he doesn't have to shoot the puck 300 times to score 30 goals.
I don't want this to be the case, but it's just something I was thinking about as we've gone over and over the Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee trades. one of the things that we started to say about Morgan Frost, and this was a third year in a row, yeah, he's just a slow starter. Like, this is what he is. It's different because the play, like last season, Tyson Foerster playing real well, puck just wasn't going in for him. This year, first 15, 20 games, it was like, yo, he sucks right now. and then, and he's since figured it out. But this is back-to-back, however you want to look at it, slow scoring starts for him. At what point do we go, this is who he is, the way we did with Morgan Frost?
I don't know why Bobby Brink doesn't bother me the same way Morgan Frost does.
Foerster.
Sorry. Yeah, my brain glitched.
Yeah, sometimes you call Cutter Goat shit.
I guess maybe because he had last year he had a hot start, right?
Who, Foerster?
Yeah.
No, well, he was real good
was it the year
two-way.
before?
He was real good two-way last year.
But wasn't scoring.
It was like 15 games without a
This
goal.
year he was just bad. He got up to I think he scored on the first game.
Yeah.
And then he went.
For some reason, he doesn't, in my mind, does not register as a slow starter the way that Morgan Frost does. And I don't know why that is. I should probably think about that.
I think for me, if he has another slow start next year, I'll start worrying about it.
Okay.
Because I'm willing to give him the rookie year. Because you could say, well, it was a slow start. It was also, he was adapting to the NHL.
Yes.
That's tough. That's tough for anybody. That was probably part of it. This year, yeah, a bit concerning. It also could have been, and I mean, I don't know this for sure, but going by kind of what John Tortorella has hinted, I think he might have came a little complacent. He might have showed up feeling a little bit, hey, I've got this thing under control.
I made it last year.
I figured it out. Yeah. I'm just going to show up and I'm going to roll. I'm starting out the season. I'm getting 19, 20 minutes a night. I'm near the top of the lineup. I'm on top of the world here. And then he got knocked off his perch a little bit and had to reevaluate how hard he has to work to be good. To me, that seems the most likely explanation as to why he was kind of a mess to start the year. If he does it again next year, then I'll be worried about it. But right now I'm looking at him saying, year one, adapting to the NHL. Year two, maybe he needed a little bit of cold water in the face. Year three, I'm expecting him not to get off to a slow start. If he gets off to another slow start, though, then you start thinking, is this just a thing for him? And then I probably start to worry a little bit, but I'm not there yet.
I think that's fair.
What is Bobby Brink?
He's a small man.
27 points on the season. You look at his game logs. There aren't these big prolonged scoring slumps. A lot of 3 games here or there, but somewhat consistent production. And then you look at it and go 27 points in 56 games. What exactly is Bobby Brink? It feels like he's better than that number. And I know scoring isn't I know scoring isn't everything. Points totals can vary. What can he be, do you think? Is he the prototypical, he'll score some for you on the third line, he can be on your power play, but that's really it? Basically what he is now, but maybe he gets a little better on the power play. What is Bobby Brink? Because I really like him, but I'm just not sure exactly how he fits outside of what he is right now.
I think what's exciting to me about Bobby Brink this year is that he's doing enough of the other things to give himself the leash that will allow us to figure out just how good he is. Because if he was just producing these point totals and playing the way he did last year, then I would say, yeah, he might get jumped by somebody because he can't just be an offense-only guy if he's only scoring half a point per game. That was the Morgan Frost problem. The only thing Morgan Frost had going for him was that he was a center.
Yeah.
So he had that. But you can't be an offense-only guy and only be scoring half a point per game because then it's well, how valuable are you? This version of Bobby Brink is playing well enough at the other things that you can stick him on a line that will control play as the Foerster Cates Brink line has been doing basically all season. You can do that, and you can give him 2-3 more years to see what he ultimately will become. Maybe in 3 years, he is just this guy. And then you're well, perfectly acceptable NHL player, but probably a guy who's going to bounce around the NHL's entire career. Yeah. But he's still young enough that he can improve. And he's doing enough of the little things to give himself the chance to have multiple years to show he can improve. That's what's exciting for me about him is that he's improved in those ways, and now we can see if more offense comes around.
I was thinking the same thing. He's not just a guy on this line with Cates and Foerster kind of doing all the
No,
work.
he's an active
He's
participant.
very much an active participant. You see how he gets his goal last night, like driving to the net. He's become much better in the forecheck, much better in battles, and that's what you have to do, especially at his size. And he's like, not the greatest skater in the world. He would have been a first-round pick if he was lightning fast.
He's also gotten faster.
Yeah.
Just like Foerster.
But of the current top 9 wingers, and it's TK, Tippett, Mish, Foerster, Brink, and we'll throw Kuzmenko in there. We'll see how that goes. Does it feel like Bobby is the most likely to be involved in a hockey trade? And before you answer that, I want to say we appreciate those of you watching on TV. Head over to allphly.com for more of the show. Does it feel like Bobby Brink is the most likely to be involved in a hockey trade of these wingers that they have a large amount of?
Outside of Kuzmenko, who is like a whatever, I feel like on that list, he's the most expendable guy. Like, I feel like he's the guy whose skill set you could most easily replace out of our top 9 wingers.
Which is why I wonder if he would actually be part of a hockey trade, because
any team could also easily replace him. Yeah.
Look, we like Bobby Brink. He seems like a fun, nice little player, at least right now. Maybe he gets better. How much of a market is there going to be for a 40-ish point 5'8" winger?
Yeah, I feel like he's the kind of guy that's like actually more valuable on your team in a role that he excels at, like he's doing right now. Well, maybe not excelling, but like getting there, than he is in any kind of trade. Because like you said, you're just not going to get a ton of value for him.
I just think it's easier. Like, for example, compare him to Owen Tippett, okay? And Owen Tippett's numbers so far in his NHL career are more impressive than Brink's. Now, the age difference is at play, but if you're a team who is looking to buy on upside, who's going to be more intriguing? The hyper fast 6'2" big dude with a plus shot, or the 5'8" weird skating guy? Like, I just don't know how much value he has, because I don't know how many teams are going to look at him and say, there's a high upside guy,
And like, when I say hockey trade, it doesn't have to be a 1-for-1.
Okay.
Like, just like the idea of moving him the way John Tortorella said, when you're improving a team, there's going to be casualties. Like, I like Bobby Brink a lot. It feels like of the wingers that they have, he's the least. They're like the least pot committed to him.
I think that's true.
TK's not going anywhere. Mish isn't
true.
going anywhere. They re-signed Tippett. Foerster, we know how much they love him.
Yeah.
Like, how many other guys even are there?
Yeah.
And Kuzmenko, who the hell knows what he is?
It's hard for me to see Brink as the key piece of a trade that matters.
Okay.
And if he's not going to be the key piece of a trade that matters, why trade him?
Yeah.
All right. We're running short on time. So, Charlie, I just want to get to one more thing before we hit Super Chats. You tweeted last night, I don't think Laughton getting traded at this deadline is a certainty. To be clear, based on the conversations I've had over the past few weeks, though, it does appear to be much more likely than it was last deadline. I know we talked about this a little earlier, but you just wrote a whole article, and read it at allphly.com if you're not a diehard. Sign up. What do you think the likelihood is? Is it 50%? Is it 30%? Yeah, I mean, all things in life are 50-50, but like Scott Laughton on this team, March 8th is a near certainty, unlikely. Like,
it's not a near certainty. I think about 3 or 4 days ago, I put it at like 35% he gets traded, 65% he stays. I think I might raise that 35% a little bit based on, honestly, a lot based on what I heard from John Tortorella today. Because to me, and maybe I am reading too much into the availability of John Tortorella today, but my read of that press conference was, when we brought up Rasmus Ristolainen, it was, he's on a friendly contract. Don't talk to me about him. We need size on defense. If we trade him away on Friday, we're going to want another big defenseman Saturday.
Yep.
And then when Scott Laughton was brought up, it was, everybody loves Scott, but you can't fall in love with players in this league. Yeah. To me, that tells me, and I don't know whether Danny is going to listen to that, but I interpreted that media availability as John Tortorella, who we all know has a seat at the table. His input is valued. What John Tortorella is telling Danny Briere in these conversations is, don't trade Ristolainen, but you can trade Laughton if you want to. Now, does that mean Laughton is definitely going to get traded? No, but that's my read. My read is that if you hooked John Tortorella up to a lie detector and said, who do you want to keep more, Risto or Laughton? He would say Risto. And John Tortorella's input matters in this organization.
And like, that just makes sense.
It does make sense.
Like,
yes.
I mean, it's crazy that we're here, but Rasmus Ristolainen,
Incredibly valuable.
very good. And John Tortorella said he's the most improved guy we've got since I started coaching here.
He's not wrong.
I was like, is that good? But like, okay,
In a way.
yeah.
good.
I mean, Travis Konecny was at one point good, and then he fell off, and now he's good again. Like Rasmus, I don't know, but it does seem as if the coach today, like you're saying, was like, yeah, I want Risto.
Yeah.
Now we'll see.
And Laughton, it's not like he doesn't want Laughton, but it's just that, hey, sometimes you got to trade guys you love.
There are going to be casualties.
Whereas Risto, it's like, no, I need my big right-handed defenseman. Don't trade him. I see where this is going, where in the end, it's going to come down to whether somebody makes a good enough offer.
Yeah.
But I listened to John Tortorella today. I listened to Keith Jones's answer about the Farabee Frost trade on Sunday. I've listened to people around the league. It's all pointing in the direction of last year, even when the Flyers got compelling offers, they're like, nah, we really don't want to trade Scott Laughton. You got to blow us away. This year, it's, look, we've set our asking price. If you meet it, we'll trade him. Now, will somebody meet it? We'll see. But if somebody meets it, I don't think they are going to then, say, never mind, we changed our mind, he's not available. I think they will move him if somebody meets that asking price. I do.
Did you see the fourth period guy said that the Flyers asked for Minton from the Leafs, and the Leafs said no? I don't know how accurate that is.
I did not see that. I don't really understand why everyone's so high on Minton.
People seem obsessed with him. I know nothing about him.
I mean, he's going to be an NHL player.
Yeah.
He is I think the optimistic view is he's a third line center. He's big. He's not a great skater. He plays physical. He has never really scored at an incredible rate, even in juniors.
Maybe it's just that he's a center.
He's not a guy to me who pops as like, man, that's a great return for Scott Laughton. Fourth period guy. Are we talking about DeMarco or are we talking about
Pagnotta?
Oh, Pagnotta. I trust Anthony a lot more than I trust Pagnotta.
He was on some Leafs morning show and said it.
All right, let's hit those super chats. We have a few here. Let's start it off with the star of the carnival, JH. It says, for Charlie, who made Torts' coffee extra strong today? Don't quite remember seeing him that spicy since the ASF drama.
Yeah, well, we were pushing him.
He was, there was a lot of, I'm not going to give you that. And it was like, well, guess what we're all here to talk about, John? And there was like a concerted little bit of a pushback, and he eventually gave pretty good stuff.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
He waits for the question to be worded in a way that doesn't I can't pick this stupid thing apart. Like, I can't pull this one thread rather than focus on that rather than talk about the content. But once you get to it, he gave some good answers today.
I thought the one thing that was very interesting, and not even in the sense of it being revealing. If you want to read into it, you can. But when he basically said, hey, if a player comes to me and asks me a question, I'm going to answer it. Danny might not even be happy that I give him as much information as I do, but I feel like I owe it to the player. That was interesting to me because I do think back to the conversation I had with Laughton in the article at allphly.com where Laughton told me on the record, he's like, yeah, I had a conversation with someone in the organization, I'm not going to say who, the morning of the DeMarco report, the Saturday before the Four Nations break. And I came away from that conversation with the impression that I really hadn't been in much trade talks. And then 3 hours later, Anthony DeMarco reports that there are teams circling around me and I didn't even know what to think. It almost makes you wonder, was that first conversation Torts telling that to Laughton? And then Danny goes off and he's like, well, let me try to get the market going on Laughton. Let me start leaking some things. And then they have a conversation about it maybe don't tell Scott Laughton that. I don't know. This is just me spitballing here. But that was interesting to me on that sense because I kind of wonder how many times Torts will say something to a player and then Danny has to pull Torts into his office and be like, did you really have to tell him that?
All right, let's get to this next one from JH. He just says, "Get him, Chuck."
Oh, this is probably
I'm gonna guess that's about
this is the
conspiracies.
lottery angle, the
People
lottery debate.
were very into the argument you two were having. I think you were too busy to notice what was
okay.
happening here, but people were very.
Okay.
From Gary
Activated.
B. Gary B says, "Thank you, Charlie. I agree 100% with you. Listen, no one wants to believe what's just
you know
true.
I'm with you.
Nobody wants to believe the unfair thing until it hits them in the face. Like, I don't know. Pull back the curtain, people.
Yeah.
Come on, sheeple." All right. Linden 49. I feel like we haven't heard from him in a little
Linden.
while.
Good to
Don't
see
get
Linden.
Charlie's Irish up.
Yeah.
I learned Charlie's middle name because we all had to reply to that email
Entertainment.
about
Charles
Charlie
Entertainment O'Connor.
O'Connor. And I was like, wow, man, this guy's Italian as hell, huh? Anyway,
Oh my god.
I'd love to mix up people's. I just like,
I
oh yeah, Irish broad, right? Like,
Oh my god.
her name's Mary Beth. Yeah.
Oh my god.
All right, and finally from Marco Belacqua's 5-hole, the super chat is for Charlie to buy Coors Light.
Light.
Trying to tell a conspiracy person that there really isn't a conspiracy is how I spent my holidays with family, and I need lots of Coors Light to survive.
You gotta chill.
I gotta chill.
Just chill.
Listen,
chill.
man, no one wanted to believe what was the ref's name? Donaghy? No one wanted to believe that either.
Did anybody know that it was going on though?
Yeah, and now look what's going on. Point shaving conspiracy after point shaving conspiracy. It's all over sports.
I feel like we shouldn't talk about gambling.
Listen, I don't understand. Like, you can't make illegal gambling is where you make all your money. Like the legal sports books. What are you going to bet on a game that they're like, well, this has clearly got something the matter with it? No, we're not taking your bet.
Yeah, it's fair.
like
fair point.
the bookies is where you like all the illegal stuff happens.
Yeah,
Anyway,
fair point.
All right. That is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And don't cheat, kids. All right. Make sure you're following us right here on the YouTube page. We'll be back for the rest of this week. We have some pre-games and post-games coming your way. I believe we have a show Friday. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, we do.
All right, yeah. So we have a lot of time to talk about like Risto trade stuff and everything we didn't get to today. Follow us here on YouTube. Follow the Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. And follow the podcast as well. Wherever you get those, just search PHLY Flyers. That's it for us. I'm Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. That is Kelly Hinkle. Until next time, let's go Flyers.
We all silly like the mayor.